Hello, welcome to my vlog on skills and capacities in speed and agility. In this vlog I will highlight both a skill and a capacity issue in a speed and agility drill, and hopefully highlight that these movements run on a continuum of skills and capacities, and that sometimes the answer isn't completely black or white. Firstly, we have Nicole performing an A-skip with a skill issue. On first inspection, there's something that doesn't look inherently right about Nicole's A-skip, and once we slow the video clip down, the flaws become more apparent. Firstly, we see a delayed initiation of Nicole's arm movement. We also see a continual shift in her focus as she's unfamiliar with the sporting skill. We also see a general lack of ankle dorsiflexion and pre-tensioning, and overall a general lag in her high knee return. Whilst the lack of pre-tension and ankle dorsiflexion may be considered a capacity issue, Nicole's continual shift in her focus and delayed initiation of her arm movement leads us to believe that she's unfamiliar with the movement and is predominantly suffering from a skill issue. So how would we address this? Ankling, to reinforce the skill of bouncing on a single leg. It also acts as a low-level plyometric and calf capacity drill. A marches are used as a movement regression and used to emphasize correct shapes. Notice that as we emphasize Nicole to drive her knees through, she loses the ability to dorsiflex her ankles. In this second video, Nicole was still performing A marches, with the additional cueing of pulling her toes up to her shins. Notice how she's regained the ability to dorsiflex her ankles. This further reinforces that this was predominantly a skill issue as opposed to a capacity issue. Next we have Nicole performing A switches to teach her the rhythm of the high knee return. This is performed with the additional cue of as one knee comes up, one knee comes down at the same time. This can further be progressed on to multiple switches. Lastly, we have Nicole performing the A-skip again. Whilst it's not perfect and she does lose the ability to dorsiflex her ankle at times, we notice a vast improvement in her rhythm and cadence. The A-skip is a skill which must be continually practiced over time to perfect. Towards the end, we also notice that Nicole starts to fatigue, which may indicate an underlying capacity issue affecting her skill development. Next up, we have John, who has a capacity issue in his A-skip. Whilst we can acknowledge that John's rhythm and cadence isn't perfect, we can also see that John has some physical restrictions which prevent him from hitting the optimal positions in the A-skip. When we slow this down, we notice that John is unable to get full triple extension of his rear leg. In addition, he has slightly kyphotic posture in his shoulders, and a lack of pre-tension in ankle dorsiflexion. Testing via the overhead squat test, knee to wall test, and pole squat test, as well as general observation, confirm that John has some physical restrictions limiting his range of motion at his ankles, hips and thoracic. To summarise, John is unable to get complete extension of his rear leg, he has slightly kyphotic posture, and a lack of pre-tension in ankle dorsiflexion owing to restrictions at the ankle, hip and thoracic, highlighting that this is a capacity issue. Bulgarian split squat isometrics to actively lengthen the hip flexor on the rear leg while simultaneously getting the glute to fire. Single leg calf raises with a slow eccentric actively lengthen the gastrocnemius muscle while simultaneously improve eccentric strength. Exercises such as open book are used to mobilize the thoracic spine. Exercises such as hip thrusts can be used to strengthen the posterior chain musculature during hip extension. A band around the knees can be used for greater gluteal activation. Integrated exercises such as hip lock drills are a great way to get the hip musculature to fire in a similar way as they would during stance. Single leg hops can be utilised as a great drill to practice the skill of single leg triple extension. Finally, once John has adequate range of motion, integration exercises that teach the skill of the A-skip, such as the exercises we used previously with Nicole, need to be utilised in order to teach John how to use his newfound range of motion. Coaching that ensures John is hitting the correct shapes is of paramount importance at this stage, to ensure his newfound capacity is integrated back into the sporting skill. Now on to the second part of the vlog. Here we have Sean performing a 45-degree cut drill with a skill issue. Firstly, here's the clips at full speed. Whilst it's difficult to discern any faults at full speed, once we slow the clips down, the skill issues become more apparent. The first thing we notice is a distinct lack of a deceleration phase, as Sean absorbs all the force with his right leg. In terms of the actual cut, ideally we'd like to see a wider plant outside of Sean's base of support. The lack of decel phase also causes Sean to be out of control, as we see him stumble towards the end. To summarise, Sean has an inefficient deceleration phase, his change direction plant is too narrow, and he has a general lack of control. It's this general lack of control, plus the fact that the others are quite coachable qualities, that leads me to believe that this is predominantly a skill issue. However, there may be underlying capacity issues which underpin this. Firstly, we give Sean the task of accelerating and decelerating before the tree. As you can see, he comes to a halt very tall and off balance. Next, we cue Sean to lower his centre of mass, take small braking steps, and to finish in his ready position. After drilling this, we notice that Sean still has a struggle to maintain balance towards the end. This may represent a lack of eccentric strength, as an underlying capacity issue. Next, we get Sean to practice the closed skill of taking a wide plant outside of his base of support from the ready position in order to change direction. This should be drilled repeatedly in the hopes that eventually Sean will adopt this movement pattern as a habit. Finally, we get Sean to perform the 45-degree cut drill again. We notice he now has a more pronounced deceleration phase, a wider plant outside of his base of support, and as a result is in greater control of his velocity. And lastly, we have Nicole demonstrating the 45-degree cut drill with a capacity issue. Firstly, let's take a look at Nicole's 45-degree cut drill in real time. The big thing we notice in both directions is that Nicole exhibits overstrider mechanics, pictured by her negative shin angles. Whilst this can be considered a skill issue, I would like to postulate that Nicole isn't able to produce the requisite amount of force, and in turn power-to-weight ratio, in order to give herself sufficient time to rearrange her body in the correct position in the air. This is based off coaching observation and power testing data. Nicole has a score of 20 centimetres on the counter-movement jump test, which can be considered below average compared to normative data for females. To summarise, Nicole exhibits overstrider mechanics during acceleration, which can be considered a skill issue, but it's underpinned by insufficient force production and power-to-weight ratio per stride, which doesn't allow her to hit the optimal shape she needs to. Interventions for Nicole will be aimed at increasing her overall force production capabilities and rate of force development, as well as exercises that allow her to integrate this newfound capacity back into the sporting skill. Bilateral exercises such as squats can be used to increase the total force production capability during leg extension. Once a foundational level of strength has been built, exercises such as the clean and the Olympic lifting variants, which feature explosive triple extension, can be used to increase rate of force production. It's at this point that exercises such as the wall draw progressions, which teach the acceleration skill, become vitally important along with correct coaching in order to transfer the newfound capacity back into the sporting skill. And finally, use of special exercises such as sleds, which allow you to express this newfound capacity in a phase similar to the sporting skill. So we've come to the end of the vlog. Thank you for listening. The take-home messages I would like to leave you with today are that skills and capacities lie in a continuum, and the problem is rarely ever black or white. Sometimes faulty movement skills are adopted because of underlying capacity issues. Likewise, time must be spent integrating newly built capacity back into the sporting skill, as transfer is never guaranteed. Thank you.